It's no secret that Alex Hormozi is setting the standard for content creation and is absolutely blowing up from a personal branding standpoint. In this video, I'm gonna break down the top 4 lessons I learned from him when it comes to content creation and how you can apply these to your own business right now in order to secure massive success for yourself in the future. The first lesson is something that Alex has recently made public, explaining what's brought him to change his mind about content creation as a whole. In the past, he's said things like, screw content, just run ads, and that he doesn't want to be known, just rich, which is obviously in total contrast to his current strategy. He recently walked us through his epiphany and how he's changed his mind on what he says is a belief that wasn't true when it comes to content. Now, it started with the realization that the biggest brands today are built on media or attention. And last century's wealthiest names were created on the basis of oil and harnessing natural energy. That's because back then, oil was the rare resource that had massive value. It was hard to get, and today, that resource is attention. This is evident everywhere you look. People's attention spans are fleeting, and everyone is absolutely glued to their phones all the time with no sign of that stopping. And on their phones, they are usually buried in TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Even TV commercials have taken a dive because as soon as an ad comes up, what do people do? They reach for their phones. On YouTube though, sponsored ad views are about 3 times higher than they are on television because most people are already on their phones when they're on YouTube and they don't have a second phone that they can pick up to distract themselves with. Now, all this to say that the companies that can harness this attention will see massive benefits in the long term. Attention is the new oil, and the wealth of the future belongs to those that can mine the attention of the masses. Lesson number 2 is all about leverage, or the difference between what you put in and what you get out. Now, obviously in business, the game is all about widening this gap, but how? In Naval Ravikant's Almanac, he breaks down 4 types of leverage, being labor, capital, or using other people's money, software code, something you can write once and continue to add user after user to with little to no additional costs on your end, and media. Now, the reason brands that can harness attention become so powerful is because they have this level of leverage that compounds on itself. They can create one video, do the work once, and more than one person can view it. Now, when you look at it this way, you start to see that the piece of content you're creating is not the actual output. It's not about how many reels you create or posts or videos, but it's about having one more person see it. The output is the audience. You now have something you can do once that continues to generate results for you over and over. And by the way, having the right strategy here matters. That's why we push YouTube as the foundation of a solid content strategy so that you can get the most leverage. And if you want more on that, check out my training over at get.upperhandcreative.com/learn. But people are catching on to this, and right now, a lot of the content on YouTube is subpar, according to Mr. Beast. But people will figure it out. More and more people will recognize that this is where the future is headed, and they're gonna jump on the trend. And just like the trend of Instagram and Facebook ad costs that we've seen in the past, competition will rise. It'll become harder and harder to rise through the noise and build your audience. And the pie of available attention will be split until slices are smaller and smaller, and it'll become more expensive to do this. So the best time to start this was yesterday, and the next best time is now. If you understand that content is a long-term play for your brand and it's where the future is headed, then you can jump in now and cut your teeth, fully understanding that it could be 6 months to a year before you even start to see results. But the ones that can do the right action consistently, even without seeing results for long enough, will win. All right, great. So what do we do with this? We know we need to be creating content and that we need to jump on it now, but how do you unlock this level of leverage? What's the best strategy to follow? And that brings us to lesson number 3, that there are 2 phases of a content strategy depending on where you are in your business. And you need to understand the purpose of each to ultimately determine your strategy. Now, Alex breaks down 2 phases, each with different purposes when it comes to content. If you're in phase 1, it's all about consistency. Here, content serves mainly as lead nurturing and fuel for your sales team. If you're doing any kind of outbound marketing or even running paid ads, you 1000% need consistent content in order to help nurture the leads you're generating. We've seen this time and time again, and organic content completely changed the results of our outbound. It allowed us to get a 50x return on our cold email investment and hit over $500,000 in annual run rate, all with less than 200 subscribers on YouTube. Conversion rates go up, booking rates go up, and the quality of people that you're having conversations with go up. Now, at this stage, while it can happen, you're not necessarily generating new leads, or at least not consistently, from your content alone. Unless, of course, you have a great backend where you're messaging people that have engaged with your content. Now, it's instead warming up the current leads you do have and making your entire funnel that much more efficient. Now, what's the first thing they're gonna do when they get hit with your ad or an outbound message from you? They Google you, they check out your Instagram profile, and if your most recent post is of you and your grandma from 6 months ago, they're quickly moving on. Now in this phase, consistency is more important than volume though. So as long as you have some recent authority building pieces of content so that people can see, as Alex puts it, that the doors are still open and you're in business, that's typically all that's needed for them to take the next step with you. You should also be keeping a library of your best content so that you can hand that to your sales team. And now they have tons of ammo for objection handling or frequently asked questions or even following up. Phase 2 is where you're likely already creating content consistently, your outbound and paid ads are humming, and you have a source of traffic that's converting pretty well for you. Now it's time to crank the volume on what you've been doing. Now the purpose here is now shifting directly to client acquisition, but this requires a massive shift in volume. Now Alex said they 10x their results when they 10x their input, which meant going from posting 7 times a week to roughly 80 times a week. Now again, this is not necessary for brands that are just starting out with content creation. When you get to this point, to sustain both the consistency of phase 1 and the sheer volume of phase 2, you have to have a machine doing most of the work for you, and you have to have solid processes in place. There's no way guys like Alex or Grant Cardone can put out the amount of content they do if they had to spend 3 hours a day making reels or editing their own stuff. Now this is what we've been able to do for our clients and remove them from this process entirely, helping them to not only stay consistent, but also produce more of what was working. Content allows you to control the conversation. And unfortunately, no matter how good your work is, no matter how good your product or service is, if you put out less content than your competition, even if you're more of an expert than, say, a lower value competitor, no one will ever know if you can't dominate that conversation in your industry. So the point here is you either need to A, start posting something, then do it again and be consistent, or B, if you already have that part down, you need to amplify the volume of what you've been doing. And finally, lesson number 4, the longer you delay the ask, the bigger the ask can be. So when it comes to creating the actual content, what do you say? I always get asked, how do I make sure my content actually brings in an ROI for me? And the answer is to give value. The more you can give, the more you can think about what your audience actually wants and needs, instead of thinking about how you can align with or beat the algorithm, the more your content will actually compound and become an asset for your business. Now, Alex mentions Kylie Jenner, The Rock, and Conor McGregor under this principle. Kylie is one of the youngest billionaires on the cover of Forbes, The Rock with his tequila brand, and Conor McGregor with whiskey. Ironically enough, no, the lesson here is not that you should go and start a liquor brand, but that each one of them delayed the ask. They gave to their audience for years before ever making an ask of them. So when they did finally sell something, when they did finally make an ask, each one of these brands quickly became $100 million, if not billion-dollar valuations. And that's only because they built up the audience first by giving. Now, we're running businesses, and you probably don't have the liberty of spending time and effort on creating content without an ask. But this doesn't mean that you can't follow the 80-20 rule. What we've found from working with clients in all different industries is always give more than you ask. So most of your content might not have a call to action at all. Or if it does, maybe just a soft, hey, follow for more kind of thing. Then maybe every 4th or 5th video, you can make a call to action to go download your thing or book a call with you. Although it's worth noting that we've seen a lot of success lately moving away from the traditional, here's the hook, here's the thing I'm gonna teach, here's the call to action framework, and instead have started following Alex's method of injecting. So he films 2 versions of every call to action that he has. So for example, follow me or subscribe, share this with a friend, go get my book, get this free course, etc. And then he injects these calls to action throughout the longer form piece of content. Now, he said that this strategy alone has helped him significantly grow his podcast. Either way, the point is that in every piece of content you create, put your audience first and obsess over how you can serve them rather than worrying about how to get views or go viral. This will translate every time. So to recap, ultimately, the brands that understand that the game has changed, that attention is the new oil, and they take action to go all in on it now are the names we'll know next century. Be willing to put in the work, to delay the ask, and give to your audience without necessarily seeing the results, and be patient. It's only gonna get more competitive and more expensive, so start today. And whether you're just starting out and in phase 1, trying to post consistently, or you're in phase 2 and trying to turn up the volume, you need a system to make content creation simple and easy to scale at any level, which I'll be breaking down in detail in my next video. So make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get notified, and I'll see you there.